So let's do it. Yeah. So I appreciate them making this makeshift thing, because I don't like to sit down when I do this presentation. This is going to be shorter than my usual stuff, so the usual presentation, so hopefully you can get a gist of it. But this is a presentation that I do at universities and high schools and colleges and art spaces. I did my first church last year, which was really interesting, and I want to bring it to more high schools though, because I think it's super important, and so I'm just going to dive into it because we don't have a whole lot of time. That's me. My name is Keith Knight. I've been doing my cartoon for 25 years now. I've been doing this thing. I am the old man at the con, so come to me and I'll tell you old stories, many old stories. But this is me as a young boy. I just got this off the internet, so I look like a ghost there. But how I went from here to here will be explained. How I went from here to here. It always amazes me the way people react when they first enter my bedroom. Holy smokes, what the hell are you doing with that blow-up doll? The Cave Chronicles by Keith Knight. Folks are often surprised to find a Feel Me Up Wilbur doll in my bedroom, although I don't know why. Tickle Me Elmo may be the #1 doll for America as a whole, but Feel Me Up Wilbur has been selling like hotcakes in the black community. They come in quite handy, although not for the use the manufacturer had originally intended. Taxi, and he's thinking, black man equals stabbed in back. Off duty, off duty. But wait, look, black man plus white guy equals okie dokie. Get the hell in here, boys. You see, because 5 black men standing on a corner without Wilbur is a gang. But 5 black men standing on a corner with Wilbur is a basketball team with a coach. They're banned in Boston, so I bought a few to send to my friends back east. Oh my God, look, it's Hootie and the Blowfish. So yeah, that's essentially the Cave Chronicles. It's my autobiographical comic strip I've been doing since college. Is this still on? Did I lose it?
Yeah, you lost it.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, this is the Cave Chronicles. It's my autobiographical comic strip I've been doing since college. And, it didn't start out this way. What started out was my first autobiographical cartoons. I started as a junior in high school, and I did it after a big food fight, and I wanted to tell the truth about it. I was the first embedded cartoonist, and I explained it all. But the nice thing about it is I had a great English teacher who allowed me to use my comics for my schoolwork. So instead of book reports, I would do comic book reports. And I did a book report on an animal farm where I substituted all the animals for my friends and high school students, and we took over the high school, kicked out the adults, said under 18 good, over 18 bad. And tell your kids to do that for their thing, and they'll get an A++. But more importantly, my English teacher said, wow, you should be doing a syndicated comic strip. So that was the first time that ever hit me. But my work really changed when I was in college. I was doing stuff about keg parties and stuff like that. And but then I had an American literature teacher. And this American literature teacher was my first black teacher I ever had. I grew up in Boston. I had a black teacher that was a substitute teacher once when I was in grade school, and that's another great story. But the first real straight up, I'm teaching you something, was my first black teacher was in college. And I don't know if you know about this, but there's a study that came out that if black students have a black teacher, their chance of going to college goes up like 30 or 40%. And they actually want to come to school. And with kids of all colors, they respond to black male teachers better than any other teachers, more than any other teachers. And I think the reason for that is because we teach kids we teach everybody to be afraid of black men. And when they see a person that totally breaks that mold, that they respond to them in a very positive way. Anyway, so this black teacher that I had was an American literature teacher. And when he assigned people to read, he assigned James Baldwin. Sorry. Is this going? Oh, it's stuck. No, not anymore. He did James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, Richard Wright, Martin Luther King, who else? Essentially, when someone brought the idea, why are you giving us all black writers? He said, I'm giving you all American writers. And that totally blew my mind. And it changed what I was doing with my work. Because here was someone working within the system, but subverting the system. And just basically showing people that, you know, when you think of American literature, you know, what do we think of Mark Twain? Like, he was, it had a profound effect on me. So I said, moving forward, I'm gonna do comics about being a black male in America. So this is one of my most resonant ones. This is dedicated to that one black kid. This is dedicated to that one black kid who lives in that tiny-ass town off the highway in the middle of nowhere. This is dedicated to that one black kid who was not into hip-hop in high school. Black Sabbath's not black, you know. This is dedicated to that one black kid who gets used as the reason why someone isn't a racist. I can't be prejudiced. My mom invited one to my 13th birthday party. This is dedicated to that one black kid with hair people want to touch all the time. Back off. Is it like a Brillo pad? This is dedicated to that one black kid who gets told they're not really black. Yo, man, brothers don't do what you do. Hey, it's a compliment coming from me. This is dedicated to that one black kid who always gets asked by white folks why they can't use the N-word. Why ask me? I don't use it. But you could if you wanted to. This is dedicated to that one black kid who wonders if they measure up to the myth. This is dedicated to this one black kid. So this is one of the strips that resonates like all the time, and people come up and go, oh my God, do you have a print of that? And I always run out of prints of it. But it's also like resonated far beyond it. I'm working on that one Latino kid, I'm working on the one gay kid, the one disabled kid, and it's really interesting to get all these stories from different people and different perspectives. And I always tell everybody, like, you know, when I speak to kids and people starting out, like drawing cartoons, I say, tell your story. Like, you have to tell your story, because if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell it for you. And you're not going to like what they say. So if there's anything to take away from this, it's just tell your own story. So after a while, I got asked to do a second strip. And they wanted something like the Cave Chronicles, but I wanted to do something different. Instead of autobiographical, I wanted to do something that took stuff from the news. Instead of multi-panel, I wanted to do single panel. So I came up with this strip called Think. And here's what I realized just 2 years ago. I started this in 1999, but just 2 years ago, I just realized that think is night spelled backwards without the G. And I never knew that until I like saw it in a mirror somehow. And I was like, oh, it was like a scary shining moment. It was excellent. So this is the very first Think strip I ever did. Denny's serving blacks since 1997. If signs told the truth. And the guy who bought the original artwork, is he here right now? A guy who bought the original artwork of that came up to me today, so it was very exciting to see him. Anyway, that's the very first one. I'm just going to run through a few of these really quickly. But I like Think because you could take these ideas that you can't flesh into longer strips and just do these quick shots. So, your sister had the baby, it's a boy. The exact moment radical black activist Thomas X realized that, yes, indeed, he was an Uncle Tom. The latest controversial extreme sporting event, the Cell Phone 500. Can you hear me now? This just in, police have just released the description of the alleged gunman who's been terrorizing the downtown area. Please don't let it be a black guy. Please don't let it be a Middle Eastern guy. Ha, they'll never catch me. The power of white privilege. The Penis Monologues with Will Chamberlain, Jimi Hendrix, and Milton Berle. How was it? Way, way too long. For the older folks in the audience. I did a lot of research for that one. You're doing this because I'm black, aren't you? Now, see, why do you always have to play the race card? So, the race card, get over it, it was a long time ago. What about black on black crime? These are all things that people say to avoid a discussion that is the most difficult discussion about America's biggest problem, which is its race problem. And the problem about even discussing it is the discussion of race and racism is always dictated by white people. Like, it ends as soon as white people become uncomfortable, which is 5.4 seconds. And then they say stuff like, why do you have to pull the race card? Or, like, my ancestors had a hard time too, and different things like that. And this is the biggest problem. And we see that now, but it's always been America's biggest problem. And so what I try to do with this slideshow is get people to understand that if we are to move forward in a positive way, we gotta have a really awkward conversation. This is how the conversation usually goes. Oh, I'm sorry. One night at Ye Olde Gallery opening. Frankly, I don't care if a person is black, white, green, purple, or brown. Me too. Who the heck are all these green and purple folks white people are always talking about? Okay, Chronicles. I'm sorry, I consider myself relatively open-minded, but I have to draw the line at purple people. I know this ain't PC, but purple people are nothing but barely civilized knuckle draggers. Believe me, I sat next to one in 2nd grade. When I was growing up, a purple family moved in next door, and the whole neighborhood started to smell like Fig Newtons. And I swear this one guy was hired at my job just because he was, well, you know. I heard green folks have 3 nipples. I think I'd better be going. Me too. Be careful walking back to your car. The purple people might get you. So here's the problem, everyone. Like, unless Avatar is a documentary, there are no blue people, there are no purple people, and there are no green people. Unless you're at a Comic-Con, which then, But it's going to be a superhero Comic-Con. You don't see anybody here. Anyway, we need to have the discussion couched in reality. And the fact that people don't even couch it in reality just goes to show you how bad it is and how awkward it is. And here's the thing. Contrary to what you think, it's okay to feel awkward. It's okay to make mistakes. And the idea that the discussion can only take place as long as white people feel comfortable goes to show you how dominating the white culture is and white supremacy. And I know that people don't want to hear that. But I'll tell you this, like, there was a time when I couldn't say white privilege and people would get mad if I brought it up. But I think people are starting to understand what that means, and that it's not, like, people used to get super defensive about it, but I think they're starting to get it now. I think they are starting to understand it now. And so that's progress. I think we have to take steps back to move forward. And I think we're in that step back phase right now. But I do believe that we are going to move forward in a very positive way. Speaking of positive, this is my latest, well, it's not my latest collection, but this is the funniest title that I've had so far. The Insurance Lines I Just Watched. This is one of my collections of my daily comic strip, The Nightlife. In 2008, I made the biggest mistake of my career and launched a daily comic strip in the worst year the newspaper industry has ever had. And it's terrible and horrible. I have 9 deadlines a week. This is my 10th year of doing it, and it's horrendous. It's terrible. I would advise anybody getting into comics now, don't even do it. Don't bother doing it. Don't ever do it. I'm going to quit this year. I guarantee you. Don't blog about it. Don't write about it because I don't want my syndicate to know. But this is on video, isn't it? But it's a horrible experience. Anyway, but it's produced some fun work. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Do you think extraterrestrials are racist? Why do you ask? They never abduct people of color. It's easier to catch white people at night. So, what I love about my readership is they're very intelligent. And after the strip ran, I started getting all these emails from people, and they were sending me newspaper clippings of the first couple that was ever abducted by aliens. And it was a mixed race couple. It was a black husband and a white wife. And I always write back and say they got caught because of the white wife. But I love when people school me on that stuff. Anyway, the strip that I've gotten the most emails about is, and letters about, is this next one. Vet mentoring. A guy in my unit smothered an IED, took one for the team. When I got home, I went to tell his loved ones what kind of sacrifice he made. Turns out he was gay. I was the first one to let his partner know what happened. I've shared things with soldiers that I'd never tell family and friends. War does that. Here was a guy who gave his life for his fellow soldiers, but wasn't allowed to share with us who was waiting for him back home. If we're not fighting for this soldier's freedom, then what are we fighting for? So my strip runs in the Washington Post, it runs in Philadelphia, it runs in the San Francisco Chronicle, it runs in the San Diego Union Tribune. San Diego is a big military town. There's a lot of there's like a base just outside of San Diego. And after this strip ran, I started getting all these emails from military people. And they said, you just changed my mind on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And as a cartoonist, in our wildest dreams, we wish that we could change people's minds with our work. But this, I got like 20 emails about it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is like amazing. And so again, this was a Sunday strip, and my strip runs on Sundays in the Washington Post. When this strip ran, this was our last president. And on his desk is the Sunday Comics. My strip ran in June of that year. And in October of that year, he repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but I'm saying the evidence is right there. So, you know, so, yes, I will take credit. So, I think comics can change the world. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. We cartoonists are the court jesters of modern day. Like, we can speak truth to power. And we can also, we just like break things down in ways that people can get. And where it's very approachable. The work is approachable. So I'm so psyched to see like work being taught in classes way more often. And just, I always get people who come up and say, yeah, we studied your work in school and stuff like that. So it's been really, really amazing. But about 5 years ago, I was doing 6 or 7 years ago, maybe now. But I've been doing, I was doing a cartoon on Ferguson, and I saw this photo of this young lady holding this up, saying, I cannot believe I still have to protest this shit. And just her face and that sign, it really encapsulated everything that was going on in my head at the time. I've been doing cartoons about police brutality for like 20 years, 25 years now, and every time I draw one, I'm like, is this the last one I'm gonna do? Is this the last one I'm gonna do? And clearly, it's not the last one I'm gonna do. And I just, out of frustration, I put together, they shoot black people, don't they? It was a cartoon slideshow about police brutality in the US. And I threw it out there and said, hey, I'm gonna do a tour about this, you know, and who wants to bring me? And the first schools that responded were all German universities. I actually did a tour of Germany with my police brutality slideshow in the US before I ever did it in the US, which is pretty amazing to me. But I am married to a German, And I will tell you this, the way they approach things, like, and it took a while to get there, but they learned what they did in World War II. They have memorials and all this stuff, and they are reminded nonstop not to do it again. And the difference between the US and Germany is we have never taken the time out to really examine what we've done here. And my wife puts it best. She said, the problem with Germany, the reason why they screwed up is they tried to do in 10 years what the US has done over 200 years. Okay? She says it's easier to boil a frog when you slowly turn up the heat. And I tell you this, she doesn't realize how much material I get from what she says, but she's like, you know, the U.S. is always talking about how, you know, they're the heroes of World War II and all this stuff. Like, you know, the Nazis actually learned how to do what they do from the U.S. They actually came here to the States to study how they treated the blacks, the immigrants, and that's where they learned it. And we are starting to see it now that it's always been here. It's just quietly been simmering. So anyway, I'm going to show you a little bit of my police brutality slideshow. Mr. White police officer, how many shots does it take for 4 white officers to defend themselves against one unarmed black male? A black male, well, let's see. Blam, 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 blam. 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 Now, if you'll notice, the character's looking at her watch. That is a cartoon trope to show that a lot of time is going by. Blam, 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 blam. Blam, 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 blam. 41. Don't you think that was a little excessive? Listen, you people could avoid getting into these situations if you would just lighten up. So I did this after the Amadou Diallo murder and the police officers having their trial moved to the whitest part of New York. Like, in what other situation does a thing get moved as far away from possible? I've only seen it in my lifetime with police killings of black people. Like, I haven't seen it with anything else. Like, the guys who were tried in the marathon, the Boston Marathon thing, everybody in Boston, I don't know anybody who would be like, oh, those guys are innocent. Like, they never moved that, but they somehow, for some reason, oh, we can't have, you know, there's a chance that there might be, you know, some bias here. Like, at what point, and I'm trying to describe with this strip, at what point does it go from defense to offense? That's basically, at what point in those 41 shots? So that's what I was doing with that comic strip. And this is the firing range where police officers do target practice. How come all the targets are black? What do you mean? They're silhouettes. They're supposed to be black. I'm talking about the afro and the FUBU logo across the chest. Well, I'll be. So that thing in his hand is a basketball, but it does look like a small watermelon, and people have said that to me, and it works both ways. So I did this strip in 2008. I think 4 years ago, there was a female soldier in Florida who approached her police department and said, do you guys have a firing range? I'd like to practice shooting. And they said, sure, come on in. So she comes in, and she goes into the place where the firing range, where they practice. And on the firing range for targets were photographs, blown up black and white photographs of young black men. And one of them was her brother as a teenager. Now, this, you know, she brought it to the news, and, you know, there was outrage. In defense, the police chief said, what we did is not illegal. That was his defense. So, what sort of mentality do you think is going on there when you are using black teenage males for target practice? You know, and this is a department that's been caught. You know, you think about how often people don't get caught. And I always use this example of my 3-year-old or 2-year-old, I can't remember how big he was, but our 6-year-old now came in one morning and he walked in and he went into the place where we have the keys and he grabbed something and he walked over to the trash bin and put his foot on it and opened up the trash bin and dropped it in there. And then he walked off really proudly away. And so my wife looked at me and said, do you ever see him do that? And I said, no. I said, do you ever see him do that? She said, no. But we know that wasn't the first time he's ever done that. When cops are caught doing this stuff, it's never like, oh my God, you just caught me like when I just went bad. You just saw me Breaking Bad right there. This is part of the culture. And when people say, oh no, there's just a few bad apples, well, if there are just a few bad apples, then you'd be able to weed them out, right? Like why would you tolerate bad apples? You know? That's the thing. It's like, we protect. If the whistleblowers, I know there's a group of whistleblowers here in New York, and like, they're ostracized. I had a cousin who was in the police department who was like, he had a heart attack at 33 because he was trying to do right and be a whistleblower, and he had a heart attack and died. He was like a college athlete. The culture has always been like this. And for anyone who thinks that, oh my God, this only started with Obama. Like, I've been doing these strips for 20 plus years. It's been, and listen, you go on, you check out James Baldwin, waxing poetic. He's been talking about it for 50. So, a couple more things. You're probably wondering why I stopped you. Since you're a regular, I wanted to give you this punch card. Every time I pull you over, you get a new punch. What happens after 10 punches? I go on paid desk duty for 3 months. So that's part of the privilege. Is like, oh, I'm being accused of abuse. Oh, I get desk leave. This happened just down the street from my apartment in Los Angeles. This is a police officer keeping a black grandmother, from going across the freeway. She was schizophrenic, I think. And if it wasn't for someone pulling over and filming this guy would still be working. All right? This is a group of brothers in Wisconsin who were, they like to play basketball. And when they had their picture taken, they were, when you shoot 3-pointers, I don't know if you noticed, but players often, do these signs. So this newspaper ran this photo of them, and the police department said, oh, they're throwing up gang signs. So the school suspended them and kept them from playing basketball. So I did this strip called How to Discern an Innocent Gesture from a Gang Sign. It's really subtle, so look closely. Peace, Vice City Vagrants. 3-point signal, Tri-City Bloods. Okie dokie, Oaktown Crips. Rock on, bro, West Side Ballers. Misguided Youth, and Thug. So this strip resonated so well that I got the best hate mail I've ever gotten in my life. So I'm going to read you just a tiny portion of this lovely hate mail that I got. Okay. Keith, regarding gang sign strip. I notice you have used the word discern in your subtle drawings. That is a biblical word, reference and term. You have used it out of content. I dare you. God is no respecter of persons. Judge not, lest ye be judged. You are very disrespectful. You are ignorant of the facts, uneducated, and misinformed, and are relaying that stupidity to the SLC residents and community. Furthermore, you are a racist bigot who discriminates and suffers from a biased stigma. you more than likely suffer various forms of mental illness, mental health issues that require prescribed medication and intervention from a medical professional. Okay. And yes, I did take a closer look at you. Your heart is evil, wicked, and corrupt with hate, prejudice, and discrimination. Try throwing up the cross. It's the only way to save your soul. Its color is red for the blood of Jesus Christ. Currently, you yourself are in a gang, probably ugly, a Mormon, and gay with an extremely small penis. There is a space in hell being reserved for you. So, it was a joy. I wrote to them. I wrote them back and said, thank you. This was the best hate mail I've ever gotten. But 10 months later, my strip went viral again, and it was because of this. The woman on the left is the mayor of a small town outside of Minneapolis, and she is standing next to a guy who used to be in a gang, but now he's out, and he's like this community activist, and they were cleaning up the neighborhood. So they took this picture together. And so this newscast was like, oh my God, the mayor's throwing up gang signs. And so then they interviewed like the police chief from that town. He's like, oh my God, she's putting in jeopardy officers' lives and blah, 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 like just all this crazy stuff. So then people on the internet started to post their own pictures of people throwing up gang signs, and this is my favorite one. And then like the husband of the mayor put this one up. So here's the thing. I lived in San Francisco for 16 years. After 10 years, I was hanging up posters for my band, and with a stapler, and I was standing at a bus stop, and this police car pulls up, lights flashing, and the cop jumps out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Hanging up posters," and I had a stapler, so I was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna put this down." And he gets on the thing, and he says, "We have the suspect." And I said, "What suspect? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, we have someone who fits your description who's going around robbing houses in the neighborhood." And I said, "What's the description?" He said, 6 foot tall, black male. And that was it. That's all he said. And I said, "That's it?" And he said, "Yeah." Now, at the time, I had dreads. Not lovely dreads like yours. They were completely unkempt and totally out of control. And I looked like a black Sideshow Bob. And I was perfectly fine. Like, I would have described myself as that very easily. So I'm just standing there, and I see down Arguello Street, I look up Fulton Street, I look down, cop cars coming from all different directions, flashing lights, all this different stuff. They all converge at this place, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, like, this is that time. Like, this is that thing that I've been writing about for so long, and it's happening right now. And so I just tried to take it all in. Like, I'm sitting on the curb and I always try to catch the eye of somebody who's going through that. So I was like looking out at all the cars going by and all the buses, and it's just kind of weird to see, like, people are kind of shocked that they're looking at you, that you're looking at them, and they kind of look away, like really scared. So my white roommate was on a bus, a number 5 bus, and it was turning down Fulton Street, and he looked down, and he could see all these cop cars down there, and he's like, oh my God, like, SFPD hassling another black man. And as it got closer, he could see my hair, and he was like, holy shit, like, that's my black man. And he didn't really say that. Anyway, the bus pulls up, and, there's all these cops there. All the cops are out now. He gets off the bus, and this guy's probably about this high, and he comes running across the street, like a look on his face, so angry, and he's like, motherfucker, like he's screaming, going, get the fuck away from him, like going crazy. And like 6 or 7 cops all turn around, and they look, and they're like, calm down, take it easy. And right there, I saw what white privilege was. Because if he had been black, if he had been brown, he would have been taken down, taken out, in any way, shape, or form. And for anyone who disagrees with me with that, you're working really hard to be in denial. So, you know, ever since then, I was like, oh my God, like this is like a huge moment. And I think this is what led to that slideshow, is just how it is blatant and it's obvious. And when people try to make excuses about cops going, oh, they got a hard job, oh, it's a tough job. Like, you're trying to tell me that somebody who's supposedly been trained for this job, okay, is supposed to be more nervous. I'm supposed to act less nervous as an untrained civilian than someone who's been trained, who has weapons all over them, who has the government and everything behind them. I'm supposed to be more mellow, okay? I shouldn't have to be perfect to live, okay? I shouldn't have to be perfect to live. And people need to understand that. For some reason, all these people can screw up, and that screwing up means dead people. There's two things, pilots and cops. You don't, if a pilot screws up, there's people dead, all right? We don't sit there and go, well, you know, it's a tough job. Let's try it again. No, okay? So all this stuff, this guy who is not getting charged with anything, who did Eric Garner, come on, please, don't make excuses. Like, if you respected the job, listen, when I see a shitty cartoonist, I don't want them to be a cartoonist anymore. Cops see a shitty cop, and you know, I know it will never happen, but this is what I think. I think when cops do this type of stuff, they should, when people sue, it should come out of cops' pensions. Yep. And not just the cop, that person, but the precinct that they're from. The moment it touches their bottom line, they will weed out bad cops. They will change their behavior. I brought this up at a convention once, and there was a politician there. He was like, yeah. And then at the end, when someone asked Q&A, he was like, Representative blah, 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 are you willing to back something, you know, back a law for that? And you should have seen him. He was like Neo in the Matrix at the beginning with the bullets, where he's like, I've never seen anyone like avoid answering a question like that. It was pretty amazing. Anyway, all right, so 4 years ago, I moved to the South. And I moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, what are you doing moving to the South? People were horrified. And here's the thing. I've never been comfortable writing about the South because I had never been there. And, you know, you just hear all these horrible, terrible things and all this stuff. But I'd never been there. So, like, I'm not going to comment on it without actually having been there. But now that I live there, I can comment on it. And it's exactly, no. It's a very interesting place. And I will say, in the past 4 years, I've learned more about race, about the African American experience, about America's biggest problem than in the 46, 48 years I've learned, I've experienced before. There's a spirit that sort of lingers in the South. There is a juxtaposition of people being very nice to you, but and it's true, like the most polite people are there, but also you feel the spirit of like hardcore shit. But then you recognize that it's all over the country. It's just more pronounced. It's a thicker thing down south. But this is the first one. I did this after Dylan Roof. And it's kind of weird because the day before or the week before this went down or something, the kid from Phantom Menace was caught like driving 100 miles an hour by South Carolina police. So it was just kind of weird. This is, I'm proud to say that in Durham and in Chapel Hill, both Confederate statues have been taken down forcefully. And it's so ironic. I don't know if you've ever seen video of the Confederate stuff coming down, but it is such a perfect metaphor for this stuff because these are erected so quickly. They were erected really quickly and they're super cheap and they're really light. So when you take them down, they just crumble really. And like that is the myth of sort of white supremacy. And honestly, after going around and hearing people make excuses for cops and making excuses for race and all this different stuff, I have realized that Black History is bullshit. Black History Month is bullshit, and that America suffers from racial illiteracy. And I'm still working it out, but really, like, people think that racism is people being mean to you. People think racism is like someone calling you the N-word from a car driving by. And that's not the racism I'm talking about, okay? It's a system that is part of this. And Black History Month is part of that system. The Black history we need to learn, the Black history that we learn is not the 5 or 6 feel-good stories, okay? The Black history that we need to learn is, it's so simple, really. This is slavery, okay? 250 years, okay? Imagine having free labor for 5 generations. What could you build if you had free labor for 5 generations? A nation, right? Okay. So 250 years. After that is 100 years, okay? 100 years of Jim Crow. So this is, 350 years. Does anyone have a pencil? A wooden pencil. I need a wooden pencil. Yeah. Here. Hey, that's a super nice pencil, isn't it?
It's okay. Do your thing.
Oh! Okay. The point I'm trying to make is if you break something, it's way easier to break something than it takes to fix something. 250 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, 50, 60 years of civil rights, affirmative action, 8 years of a black president. So it's this versus this. If I try to fix that pencil, do you think I can fix it as quickly as I broke it? There is nothing you can fix quicker than you break. Okay, and when people sit there and say, oh, my ancestors had it really bad too. This is racial illiteracy. Because do you know how people came over here? Black people, African people came over here. They came in the bottom of ships. And they were put in like sardines. They were expected, it was expected that a lot of them would die. They shit themselves, they puked themselves. When people had babies, they would toss them over the side to the sharks, with the idea that the strongest ones make it. And then you broke them of their names, of their families, you separated them. And if you wanted to make more, you raped them, and you made more, and you sold them. Now you think about that. You think about, Lincoln freed the slaves. Do you think that after 5 generations of that people are going to be like, white people are going to be like, oh, You're human now. We're going to give you jobs, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. Reparations. People get so bent out of shape of reparations. You know, actually, there were reparations given after the Civil War. Do you know who they went to?
Slave owners.
Slave owners. White people got reparations. You don't learn anything about that. Someone was talking to me about Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington, North Carolina was the only place that the United States had a coup in the late 1800s. Why did they have a coup? Because Wilmington, North Carolina was the most prosperous city in North Carolina, and it had black politicians and white politicians working together. White people got mad and went there and murdered everybody. We don't learn any of that. Literally in the South, there's still places where they say, oh, Civil War wasn't about slavery. We have a complete blind spot. When they talk about the descendants of people in the Holocaust, they're higher in depression, suicide, all this stuff. What do you think lingers in the people here in the United States who it's never even been acknowledged? Like, we have these ghosts all around us. And when people say, oh, that was so long ago, that was such a long time ago. Jesus was a long time ago. Get over that. Like, you'd never hear anyone say that, right? You would never hear anyone say that. And you're telling me 150 years ago is too late. Barack Obama opened up the Smithsonian, the Black History, and if there's one museum you should go see, it's this museum. The Black History Museum. He opened it up with a woman whose dad was born a slave. Now, if, she's since passed, I think, but the fact that she exists, her dad was a slave, don't you tell me that that was a long time ago, okay? There were benches I've sat on in Germany that are longer, that are older than this country. So don't tell me it was that long ago. So my goal is to inform people through my work that we need to do the hard work. Because none of the stuff I'm telling you right now you'll ever learn in school. I certainly didn't. But here's the thing. The shittiest music that you hear is always the easiest music you have access to, right? Pop music is always the worst. The good stuff, you always have to search, and I call it digging in the crates. It's a hip-hop term, digging in the crates. We have to dig in the crates to find the real history. Jackie Robinson was not the first black baseball player. And stop making it sound like it's an accomplishment. White people kept black players out. There were plenty of players that would have kicked everyone's ass that were playing in the Negro Leagues. But they actually let black players play in the late 1800s. But it was part of, after the Civil War, there was Reconstruction. And Reconstruction was about 10 years. And then white people said, oh, that's it. 10 years for the 250 before, like, everything's fine now. And they started saying, like, just passing all these laws and keeping black people from doing stuff. So, like, all this stuff that we hear of these accomplishments, Barack Obama is not a black accomplishment. It's a white accomplishment because white people suddenly were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll vote for the black guy. Like, that's not a black accomplishment. That's a white accomplishment. So, what's the point of this? I know it's a big data. Know your history. Know our history. It's a collective history. And I do this. I started doing it. I think because white people want to know how they can feel less guilty, what they can do to help. And I would just say this: inform yourself and understand that you get mad when people are asking for reparations or saying racist. Oh, what you want to? You see now that you see it. I don't think you get as mad anymore. I hope you get mad at the system that proliferates. But I also think a lot of white people are starting to understand, going, I kind of like it this way. This is like, I kind of, they're realizing they're racist. They don't feel that bad about it. And listen, as long as I know where you're at, I know, as long as I know who my enemies are and who aren't, like, it's actually better for me. When you see someone taking a knee during a game for police brutality, and understand that, when you see someone getting mad because of that, it's them not wanting to, it's them feeling uncomfortable, So him taking a knee is making white people uncomfortable. Those are the people complaining. But ultimately, he's going to be looked upon the way he was looked upon. Everybody loved Ali, but when Ali was doing what Kaepernick was doing, he wasn't, people weren't such a big fan. And so it's so funny to see, like, people write, oh, MLK would never block a bridge or do this or that, and it's just like, I don't know if I was just a little kid then, but, Martin Luther King was a rabble-rouser. Rosa Parks wasn't just some lady who was tired from work, she was an activist. And here's the thing, like, we have to be either, you can't be on the fence. You have to be an active anti-racist. And if it means calling out, and I don't know, when white people get together, they have their own thing. You need to call out people. When white people start calling out white people away from everybody else, then we're making progress. So it started out about making white people comfortable, but really it's about making black people seek out the stuff that I've learned. Like, you will feel, it's depressing, but I will tell you this. This society is designed to make white people feel like the greatest people in the world, and everybody else to feel less than. The moment you learn about this whole system that's here, that weight gets lifted off your shoulder. My career took off the moment that was lifted off my shoulder. And so this is a very selfish thing. I get to come here and yell at white people for an hour, and then you come and buy my stuff. But this is I did a whole series of different children's games, and I thought this was one of my favorite ones. Like, when I tell people of color, get into mental health. We need more mental health practitioners, shrinks, people to talk and talk about this stuff, because it's a burden and it's a health issue and it's heavy duty. And you may not think you have white privilege, but the one thing you don't have, the one thing you don't have to worry about is your race holding you back. Like, you're being perceived like, oh, and you sit there and go, oh, you get all this free stuff, black people get all this free stuff, It's such a sham. It's such a sham. If it wasn't for black people, music on the radio would sound like that stuff at a Renaissance fair. Like, all music would sound like that. We invented stoplights, cell phone technology, potato chips, super soakers. There's all this stuff we've invented. There is. You got to look it up. But one thing we also invented is, that pencil sharpener that everyone uses in school?
Yeah.
It's called the love sharpener. And I've yet to find one that I can just walk around with, but check it out, what you can do with the love sharpener. So you take a little love, and you go like this, and I don't think this is gonna work. Anyway, so I go like this, and then I fix two things, and I give one back to you, and then I give you a free book later when you come by my thing. And then I take one to a person of color, and I give it to you, and then we all hug, and then that's the end of the show. That's the fantasy version. It's not really the end, but I'm working on this poster called, like, I want to like trick white people into coming and call it Embracism and learn to hug the hate away. I'm not finished with it yet, though. Anyway, just the last few things. Yeah, so all lives matter. I'm sure you've heard this. All lives matter. If people sit there and go, all lives matter. If I have a bumper sticker on the back of my car that says "Save the Rainforest," it doesn't mean fuck the other forests. It means that the rainforests are getting cut down and we need to do something about it. So that's what that means. You don't have to argue about this anymore. Okay, quickly. Racism in America is like that big pile of dog poop that sits on the grass in front of your apartment building. It's been there for as long as you can remember, and nobody knows how it got there. Nobody wants it there, yet no one wants to clean it up. They say, why should I? I didn't leave it there. Soon you just accept it. You do your best to avoid it or ignore it. It's that pile of poop that allows someone like Trayvon Martin to be murdered while his killer walks. The flies that are attracted to that poop are the people who put "Don't renege" bumper stickers on their vehicles. I don't care about the flies, just clean up the shit. That's referencing something else earlier in the strip that I didn't include in there, but basically it's this, and I use this analogy with littering. You could sit there and say, I don't litter, I don't litter, I don't teach my kids to litter. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't volunteer and clean up the goddamn beach, because there's a system in place that allows that stuff to roll up on the shore. There's a system in place that allows litter to be all over the place. You may not do it yourself, but we have to actively clean up. And so we have to actively take care of this, like all of us together. And we all have different jobs to do. And people will say, it's so awkward, it's hard. But the moment you call somebody out on shit, they may act like they're not affected by it, but they are affected by it. And once they see white people doing it, calling white people out when nobody else is there, they're like, what the hell is going on? So I appreciate you guys coming and hearing me rant like this. It's a lot, this is a lot rougher than it usually goes, but I usually stand up and have a mic and run around. I have more time. Anyway, Sean King, listen, if you wondered what you would do if you were alive in the civil rights movement, now is the time to find out. Now, right now. This moment in time. Believe me, these kids in cages have reparations coming to them 50 years from now. We're going to be looking back at this time as complete shit show. I mean, it's a shit show. Most of us understand it's a shit show now, but 50 years from now, we're going to be like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, what did you do then? And I was like, I was at a comic book show. No, but I was at Keith Knight's comic book show. Anyway, next week, if you know anyone in Denver, I'm doing this in Denver. This thing is always, it's not really, I'm doing this in Denver next week at Dink. Hey. And you should support me via Patreon. I will continue to do my comics if you so want me during Patreon, despite the fact that I'm doing a show for Hulu, and this is we've only done the pilot. It hasn't been I don't know whether it's going to be a series or not, but this has been amazing. And Lamorne Morris is playing me, and Lara Goldie's playing my girlfriend, who becomes my wife, Kirsten, and it's really weird to see it happen. And I stole all his props. They got the same markers and stuff that I use. I stole it from the set. But it's just really kind of amazing. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't draw comics for like 25 years. So I totally appreciate all the support that you've given me. over the years. I know a lot of you have been around for a long time and watched me wallow in poverty. And I'm still poor, believe me, I'm still poor. But I get a TV show. Yeah. But I totally appreciate it. I'm right in the door if you want to come up and talk and come up to me and go, well, yeah, but what about this? And I have posters. I do posters of people who inspire me and stuff like that. And I also have this list of resources that I give to people, saying like, if you want to just dig in the crates, just as a beginner thing to dig in the crates, I have a list of resources that you can come and take a look at. Okay, so I don't have any time at all, right? This has been an hour. Does anyone have any questions really quick?
Yeah, 2 questions.
Okay, 2 questions. Any questions? Yes.
Do you know the book, The Marrow of Tradition?
The Mayor of Tradition.
The Marrow of Tradition. It's a book by Charles Chestnut. It's about the Wilmington Massacre.
Oh, no.
I always thought it would be a great graphic novel.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting it on you.
Well, I will tell you this. That is for someone else to draw. I'm working on 2 right now that are like, it's a nightmare. Like, it's a nightmare. But that's a good resource. I want you to come up and write it down for me, so I remember that. Yes, sir.
Okay, were most of your comics based on hypocrisies and ironies when white people discuss about race or something?
No, I will tell you this. This is not really a lot of my comics are like that, but I do a lot of other things. I do stuff like Life's Little Victories, where like if you peel off a piece, the skin of an orange in one piece, it's a little victory, stuff like that. Oh, someone sent me a good one. If you get a thing of fries, you find a stray. Yeah, they said onion ring, but I said fried clam. If you fried clam in there, oh, that's a little victory, man. So I'm a relatively optimistic person, but I will say, like, just doing all this, and there's a lot of people who don't want what's going on to change or be any different. So I would just say to equip yourself mentally, and it's a very Public Enemy, Chuck D type thing, and just like, you have to be headstrong to deal with all this and raise a family and be successful and like all this stuff. And so that's, you can't expect a lot of people to get on board. I've always rooted for, everything I've ever rooted for loses. They were on the cusp of making the playoffs, and Carolina and Columbus beat them, and they got into the playoffs. So there you go. One more question. I'm sorry, I totally over time. Any other questions? You can ask me later. No. All right. Thank you for coming out. I totally appreciate it.